In 1920, a groundbreaking theory in quantum physics emerged, one that would forever reshape science and the way we understand reality. Known as the Copenhagen interpretation, this idea was developed by physicists Niels Bohr and Werner Heisenberg in Copenhagen, Denmark. It introduced a bold concept that a quantum system can exist in multiple states at once, a phenomenon called superposition until it is observed. Simply put, the theory suggests that all possible outcomes exist at the same time, but only one becomes real when an observer directs their attention to it. Reality, according to this view, is not fixed until it is seen. If this sounds confusing right now, don't worry. By the end of this video, you'll have a clear understanding of this mind-bending idea. Just stay present. What you're about to hear may challenge everything you think you know about existence. First of all, let's take the time to explore in detail what quantum physics is. A branch of theoretical physics that studies the behavior of subatomic particles and quantum systems at the microscopic scale. Quantum physics, a discipline belonging to the field of theoretical physics, is dedicated to the analysis of particle behavior on a microscopic scale. This scale corresponds to the dimensions of atoms, molecules, and subatomic particles, such as electrons, protons, and neutrons. The fundamental objective of quantum physics is to study and analyze the behavior and interactions of subatomic particles, which are the elementary constituents of matter. By delving into these microscopic worlds, quantum physics aims to deepen our understanding of reality at the macroscopic scale that is familiar to us, thus allowing for a more complete and profound vision of our universe and its functioning. What is fascinating about the subatomic world is that it exhibits behaviors that are completely different from those we observe in our macroscopic world. The laws of physics that govern this alternative universe are radically different from the laws of physics we are accustomed to, such as gravity, space-time, or even certainty. In the field of quantum physics, a branch of physics that studies phenomena at the atomic and subatomic scale, the concept of time and reality appears in a radically different light from what we are accustomed to in our daily lives. It seems that things in this world tend to exist in a state of probability, allowing for uncertainty rather than absolute certainty. One could say that in the infinite universe of possibilities, every scenario, every choice, every decision is already present, waiting to be noticed and materialized in the tangible world that surrounds us. What is particularly captivating is that this world, with all its elements and mysteries, is actually the one that constitutes our own reality, our daily environment in which we evolve and interact. Subatomic particles, such as protons, neutrons, and electrons, make up atoms, which in turn combine to form molecules. These microscopic entities are the building blocks of all matter present in our observable physical universe. The human body is made up of microscopic particles that are also found in the food we eat, the water we drink, and the air we breathe. Thus, the vision of reality completely changes when we consider that the infinitely small world that constitutes our universe exists in the form of probabilities. This perspective leads us to question the nature of reality as we perceive it and the implications of this coexistence between the quantum world and our macroscopic reality. Is it conceivable that our actions, thoughts, and emotions have an impact on the world around us, thereby altering the reality as we perceive and experience it on a daily basis? The answer to this question is indeed positive. I will now explain in detail the reasons that justify it. Your body, with its organs, muscles, bones, and tissues, as well as your brain with its billions of interconnected neurons, is all made up of these tiny elementary particles, such as protons, neutrons, and electrons. Thus, you are literally made up of these fundamental particles in their entirety, just like myself and everything around you, from nature to everyday objects. When we talk about your body in its entirety, we are referring to your whole being, including both your physical form and your mind, which together constitute what we commonly identify as our identity, ourself. Thus, it is possible to distinguish two essential components that constantly interact to shape who we are. The functioning of our mind can be divided into two distinct parts. The first is the conscious part, responsible for our daily thoughts and voluntary decision-making, while the second is the unconscious part, tasked with automatically regulating vital functions such as heart rate, blood circulation, and the internal chemical processes of our body. These two parts, namely the first part and the second part, are not clearly separated from each other, but they operate in close coordination. They interact, constantly transmitting information to each other in a smooth and continuous manner. When an individual suffers from a physical illness, it can have a negative impact on their mental and emotional well-being. Similarly, a person facing mental or emotional disorders may experience a decrease in their physical vitality. This is a truth established by the scientific community after thorough research and rigorous experimentation. The thoughts we perceive are not limited to simple abstract thoughts. In reality, they are complex electrochemical signals generated by our brain in response to various stimuli from our environment. These signals are then transmitted to our body to allow it to appropriately adapt to external situations. When we are confronted by a predator, our brain analyzes the situation and sends an alert signal to our body, thus triggering a fear reaction. This emotion of fear is then associated with the presence of the predator, which drives us to adopt protective or fleeing behaviors. This electrical signal spreads through our neurons, traveling along axons and dendrites to transmit crucial information to our autonomic nervous system. Once it reaches its destination, this signal triggers a series of chain reactions that result in the release of various chemical substances, such as adrenaline and cortisol. These stress hormones then act on our body by increasing our heart rate, dilating our bronchi, and mobilizing our energy reserves, thus preparing our organism to react optimally in the face of an imminent danger, such as the presence of a potential predator. In reality, the body and mind maintain a close and interdependent relationship. The body, composed of different organs and systems, acts as a receiver and transmitter of information from the external environment. For its part, the mind, the seat of thought, emotions, and consciousness, processes this information and reacts accordingly. Thus, these two elements form a complex and dynamic system, allowing the individual to interact with their environment and adjust their responses based on the stimuli received. It should be noted that these signals are primarily generated by our internal emotional states. It happens that emotions are not only triggered by external events, but they can also be sparked from within by the recall of familiar memories that revive the same emotions associated with those memories. Our body does not distinguish between emotions felt in reaction to external events, such as stress or joy, and those triggered by internal events like thoughts or memories. In other words, according to some neuroscience studies, it has been shown that the human brain is not capable of distinguishing a concretely lived experience from one that is simply imagined or thought. It is from this idea that the expression emerged, suggesting that what we feel and think within ourselves is often reflected in our external environment and vice versa. When we experience inner discomfort, it can influence our perception of the outside world. Indeed, our emotions can alter the way we interpret events and situations that present themselves to us, which can lead to a biased view of reality. Moreover, it is important to emphasize that the negative emotions we experience as a result of our thoughts have a direct impact on the biological functioning of our body. When we are faced with stressful situations, our body reacts by releasing hormones such as cortisol, a stress-related hormone, which has a direct impact on our mental and emotional state. On the other hand, when we cultivate positive emotions such as joy, we activate a beneficial process for our body. Indeed, this has a positive impact on our biology by promoting the release of happiness hormones such as serotonin and endorphin. These substances help improve our mood and overall well-being. It is essential to consider the close link that exists between the body and the mind, and to realize that they are closely connected and do not function in isolation from each other. The two elements in question interact reciprocally, each exerting an influence on the other. As human beings, we possess the remarkable ability to exert control over our conscious mind through our will. This control allows us to have a beneficial influence on the biology of our body, particularly on our autonomic nervous system. Thus, it is important to realize that our body and mind are closely linked by a complex network of communication that operates on a microscopic scale. It is possible to consciously act on this system by controlling our thoughts through our will. By exploring the subatomic world more deeply, we discover that our body as a system is an integral part of an even larger system, namely the quantum universe that encompasses everything that exists. Just as your body and mind are closely linked, it is important to emphasize that your body is an integral part of the quantum universe, a vast and complex system. It should be noted that you also exert an influence on this universe. and that this connection is deeper than it appears at first glance. Just as your conscious thought has the ability to influence your bodily biology, it also has the power to influence the reality that surrounds you. If at first this idea may seem surprising or even extravagant, once you have grasped the underlying concepts, you will realize that this approach is actually based on unyielding logic. You will then realize that nothing miraculous is at play here, but simply the application of fundamental principles of physics and mathematics. When physicists began their research on the quantum universe, they first made the fundamental discovery that atoms are the basic building blocks of all forms of existence, as mentioned earlier. Continuing their research, they observed that atoms consist of a central nucleus formed of protons and neutrons, surrounded by a peripheral zone called the electron cloud, where one or more electrons are found. This field, which is an expansive land bounded by specific limits, is so vast in comparison with the elementary particles of matter that can be observed at first glance that nearly 99.9% of its composition is actually made up of void. Over time, gradually individuals have come to realize that the apparent emptiness of this space is not actually devoid of content, but rather harbors an extensive array of energy frequencies. These frequencies form an invisible and interconnected field of information, thus revealing the complexity and richness of this environment. Therefore, it is interesting to note that in our reality, even though matter appears solid at our scale, it is actually composed of 99.9% energy and information. Thus, it is important to emphasize that matter as we know, it is primarily composed of energy to the extent of 99.9%. All these interactions take place within a vast energy field where thousands of pieces of information circulate continuously on an infinitely small scale. Moreover, a constant flow of information is exchanged between our body and mind at the present moment. Subsequently, after a period of time has passed, the researchers made an additional discovery regarding the behavior of electrons evolving within this particularly vast field of study. They adopt a completely unpredictable attitude. It seems that these entities are not governed by the same physical laws that dictate the behavior of matter in our observable world. At a specific and determined moment, they are present at that location, then subsequently they fade away and are no longer visible. It is extremely difficult, if not impossible, to predict with certainty the exact time and place where electrons will appear due to their unpredictable nature and quantum behavior. Subsequently, the researchers conducted in-depth experiments that allowed them to highlight the fact that electrons, these negatively charged elementary particles, can simultaneously exist in a state of possibility or probability. This fascinating discovery revealed that electrons can occupy an infinite number of positions and trajectories simultaneously, thus opening new perspectives in the understanding of the quantum world. When an observer focuses their attention on a specific material object, they seek to discover that the invisible field of energy and information associated with that object dissipates, thereby revealing a particle known as an electron. To better understand this concept, imagine that all possibilities already exist simultaneously in the form of probabilities. It is only when you focus your attention on a specific element that you will influence this energy and constrain it to materialize according to what you intend to manifest. It is a matter of wave function collapse, a quantum phenomenon, where the superposition of quantum states reduces to a single determined state, or wave packet reduction, a process by which the localization of a moving particle becomes increasingly precise over time. However, as soon as the observer turns their gaze away from the electron and stops measuring it, the electron ceases to be observed and returns to its initial energy state, thus disappearing from view. In other words, according to the principle of quantum mechanics, the physical matter particle, that is the electron, does not actually take shape and does not exist in a defined state until we make the decision to observe it or give it our attention. It is important to clearly distinguish between giving your attention to something which involves active concentration and mental involvement, and simply having a thought which can be more fleeting and less focused. It is important to understand that the mere occasional thought of a goal or desire is generally not enough to bring it to fruition. Indeed, the realization of our aspirations often requires continuous commitment, concrete actions, and sometimes even strategic adjustments to achieve our goals. Attention is the ability we have to focus our mental energy on an object, a person, or a specific task. It is thanks to this attention that we can perceive, understand, and react to what is happening around us. When you reminisce, your mind focuses on those past experiences, analyzing and exploring them with a certain attention. When you have the ability to precisely locate the position of your shoes, it demonstrates that you give them a certain attention and importance. This can also reflect your ability to remember past events related to these shoes, as well as emotions such as the pain you may have felt while wearing them. In general, as soon as we anticipate seeing a particular item, our focus naturally shifts to that item. When you wake up in the morning expecting to feel a specific pain, it is highly likely that you will actually feel it, because by paying attention to it, you give it the opportunity to manifest. The complexity lies in the difficulty of understanding and managing the various elements at play. It is difficult to control one's attention due to the multitude of stimuli that constantly engage our brain, which sometimes makes concentration complicated. Each of us is subject to automatic thoughts that emerge from our unconscious, that is the part of our mind that operates without our full awareness, and which is linked to our autonomic nervous system. When a traumatic event occurs in our life, and we frequently pay attention to it, we promote the strengthening of the neural connections associated with that experience. Thus, we contribute to anchoring this event more deeply in our memory and our brain. In this way, when we repeat certain thoughts, our brain integrates them and sends them back, regularly associating them with negative emotions that eventually manifest in the same way in our lives. What I want to express is that it is essential to start by finding internal coherence with one's own values, goals, and aspirations before being able to establish coherence with the people or things one wishes to attract into their life. This means that if you have negative automatic thoughts such as, "I'm useless," "I hate my boss," "I'll never be rich," "I'll never be happy," but in reality you aspire to become a fulfilled person, you are in a state of inconsistency because you are expressing contradictory ideas. I am referring to you when I speak, but it is important to emphasize that this situation also concerns me. That's why I am actively working to address it. Becoming aware of the necessity to engage in a personal development process represents the starting point for acquiring the skills and tools needed to build the life one truly wishes to lead. To align our conscious and unconscious parts, it is necessary to reprogram the latter, so that it is in perfect harmony with our conscious part. This approach involves working on the mechanisms that govern our unconscious in order to adjust and harmonize them with our conscious thoughts and actions. You will have to call upon your willpower to overcome this challenge. It is important to take into consideration the fact that if a person has harbored negative thoughts for as long as 20 years, it will not be possible to reconfigure their brain in a single day. It is highly likely that you will need several months of work to complete this task. Each passing day represents a new opportunity for you to facilitate the process, as you will daily strengthen the programming of your subconscious. To achieve this state, one of the main tricks I use is to fully concentrate on the present moment, setting aside all thoughts related to the past and the future. This allows me to connect more deeply with my sensations, my emotions, and my immediate environment, thereby fostering a greater presence and a better self-awareness. As a general rule, emotions such as stress, fear, anxiety, or guilt often arise when we find ourselves reliving a memory from the past or when we try to imagine a future event based on our previous experiences. This means that we use our past experiences as a reference point to anticipate and hope for a more favorable future. But our present actions can sometimes go against this logic. It is precisely at this point that we must recognize the importance of turning the page on our past and not dwelling on it. It is important to emphasize that even though we must move towards the future, this in no way implies that we must completely renounce our past. It is rather about finding a balance by mentally detaching ourselves from what has been in order to better embrace what will be. The moment you realize that negative thoughts cross your mind or that you are experiencing negative emotions, take the time to refocus on the present moment. By detaching yourself from these thoughts and emotions, you will be able to regain a state of calm and serenity. It is recommended not to let yourself be absorbed by memories of the past or worries about the future, but rather to fully concentrate on the present moment, being aware of each instant and giving it your full attention. When you manage to fully anchor yourself in the present moment, focusing on the here and now without letting your mind wander to the past or the future, you will realize that you feel incredibly good in harmony with yourself and your environment. Of course, don't hesitate to give me a sentence to paraphrase. You will have the opportunity to observe with your own eyes and in a concrete manner what is being discussed. Take a moment to pause your activities and fully focus on the present moment. Try to gradually detach yourself from your identity, from the ties that bind you to the physical world, and simply immerse yourself in the present moment, letting yourself be carried by the here and now for a few minutes. When you adopt this state of mind imbued with attachment, you will find that inner peace will naturally settle within you as you will be freed from all forms of attachment. At that precise moment when these words are spoken, your body begins a process of rebalancing. If you are a person prone to anxiety, it is important to know that it is possible to modify this reaction by implementing appropriate strategies and techniques. I was also filled with anxiety, feeling a constant tension and negative thoughts looping in my mind. It is important to understand that in order to recondition your autonomic nervous system, it is necessary to learn to modify its reactions based on your conscious thoughts. Thanks to your determination and inner strength, you can choose not to feed a negative thought by dwelling on it and letting yourself be overwhelmed by the resulting emotion. Instead, immediately direct your attention to the present moment, focusing on what is happening around you. Following this approach will give you the opportunity to undertake a true physical detox, allowing your body to gradually rid itself of this negative thought. By adequately reprogramming your body, you will manage to dissuade it from subjecting you to this harmful thought again. Another recommendation to consider, in addition to this one, is to systematically prioritize positive aspects, whether in your interactions with others or in your own attitude towards yourself. When you express criticism towards a person or towards yourself, you reactivate emotions such as anger, anxiety, or hatred. By doing so, you create new neural patterns and train your body to repeatedly react to these negative emotions. Automatically, as soon as you request it, this tool will be able to provide you with a greater amount of information. If you encourage someone to harbor feelings of hatred, it is likely that they will return those same emotions to you, because our reality is often a reflection of what we nurture within ourselves, much like the complex functioning of our own body. Therefore, it is important to emphasize that positive affirmations, positive thoughts, kindness, mutual support, and compassion are all elements and actions that significantly contribute to reprogramming that part of the mind which remains unconscious. In reality, it is essential that your actions, your thoughts, and your habits are in perfect harmony with each other. When you manage to align your body, that is your physical form, with your mind, that is your state of mind and thoughts, you create an internal harmony that is reflected in your perception of reality, making it more coherent and more in tune with your aspirations. It is important that you memorize the following quote so that you can recall it later. Energy always follows the path traced by your attention. In other words, where you direct your attention, that's where the energy will flow. The object in question which we are talking about seems to grow in magnitude and size over time, which can be observed quite evidently. It is important to distinguish between automatic thoughts which arise spontaneously and uncontrollably, and conscious thoughts over which we can exert some control and reflection. When you strive to make these two parts coherent, you focus your attention on this specific goal, which allows you to ensure perfect harmony between these elements. By consciously controlling your thoughts and intentionally directing your attention, you will be able to fully harness your potential and realize your desires and goals. One of the most powerful keys to bringing your dreams to life is understanding and using the manifestation equation. This principle outlines the steps needed to turn intention into reality. When your desires are backed by clear focus and strong emotion, their path to manifestation becomes much more direct and potent. When you're crystal clear about what you want, your attention naturally sharpens. But it's not just about clarity, it's about emotion. When you infuse your intentions with genuine love, deep joy, and heartfelt gratitude, you activate a higher frequency within yourself. This emotional harmony strengthens your energy and aligns your actions with the universe's flow. This inner alignment is what opens the door to creating your ideal reality, one that resonates deeply with your true self. It echoes a famous insight often attributed to Nikola Tesla. If you want to understand the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. If this message resonates with you, feel free to show your support by liking the video and leaving a comment. Your energy helps keep this space alive. Be sure to explore the other videos on this channel for more guidance on manifestation and conscious creation. And don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss any future insights. I'll see you again very soon.